Hey everybody. So here we are fixing to do section 8.4. Now remember, I've gone in an extremely weird order, but this is the last section that we'll cover before our test. So I do want to let you know that we're looking to test. We're going to test on Wednesday. What will that be? That'll be April the 1st. Horrible choice for a test day. April Fool's Day, but yeah, that's when we're looking at test. Now, let me tell you a little bit about it before we do today's lesson. I'll send an email as well, but it'll be in Blackboard, okay? And so I've written it in Blackboard. You go and you take it. It'll give you your score. I may consider curving it since it's hard to give too much partial credit. It is completely open notes, open books, whatever. Since I can't be there with you watching you, it wouldn't be fair if I said no books and then some people cheated and some people didn't because you're at home. So we're going to go ahead and say open notes. So we're not doing a review this time because you have all of your worksheets there that we have been working on throughout each section with the answer keys, except for 8.2. It has all those typos and all those errors, but you have all the work there to be able to to look over as you take it if you need to. I think it's a pretty simple test, but I always think tests are pretty simple because I wrote it. All right. So now let's get on to section 8.4. Section 8.4 is about nonlinear inequalities. It kind of matches this one. I was going to do an example to show you how it matches, but I don't want to distract us from what we're actually going to be tested on, and I don't want to make it more confusing than it needs to be. It's actually a pretty easy thing we're going to be doing. We're going to give you everything in factored forms, and you just need to tell me where something is greater than 0. That's all we're going to compare to. We're going to give you it factored. You need to tell me where it is greater than 0, or greater than or equal to 0, or less than 0, or less than or equal to 0. That's all we're comparing to right now, okay? So you're going to tell me where something is greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0, and all these. So the way we've known to answer these in the past, back when we did Algebra 1, was interval notation. Now, usually when I do interval notation, in Algebra 1, College Algebra 1, I spent a long time teaching it. But I'm going to assume that you have that. If not, if you have never learned interval notation, say you were not in my Math 105 class last semester, well then I would suggest you Google it. Okay. There are two notations. One uses open circles and closed circles on the number line. For some reason, this textbook uses brackets and parentheses on the number line. Well, an interval notation always uses these. Sorry, I was thinking of doing things on a number line, which I will be doing as well. Okay. So let's just jump into the examples and see if I could talk through the reasoning for how we want to think through this stuff. Like I said, we're going to be very polite to you on the test. We're going to give you everything in factored form. So it'll look like this, already factored. We could give you harder problems that you had to factor yourself or solve yourself, but we're going to be really nice to you. So notice it's a factored. If you were to FOIL this out, it's a trinomial, right? But it's factored, and we're comparing to when is it less than 0. So here's how we're going to do this. If you were to solve this, pretend it was an equal sign. So that's what we're going to kind of do. Pretend it's an equal sign. And you could solve that, right? X plus 2 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. And when you solve these, that'd be what? X equals -2, and x equals, add the 3 over, so positive 3. So those are the two numbers that we're actually going to look at. We're going to use these two numbers, -2 and 3. So here's how we're going to use them. We're going to get ourselves a number line, and we're going to put our solutions on the number line. We only need to put tick marks for the numbers that we're using. Now make sure you do put them in order. Remember, number lines go from least to greatest. So which number needs to come over here on the left? That would be the -2. And on the right would be the 3. Okay? And so what we want to do is we would like to see, now listen to this very carefully. we would like to see when this is less than 0. So that means less than 0. What does that really mean? What numbers are less than 0? That's the negative numbers, right? So that's all we're looking to see is, hey, where, when we pick an x value, will it be negative or less than 0? And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually test a few points. I draw the number line so you can see there are 3 regions on my number line. You see the first one, the second one, the third one? Depending on how many solutions you have, here we had 2, how many solutions to the equal sign, it'll break it up, that'll give you different numbers of regions, and we just need to check each region to see if it gives us what we want. So all you have to do is pick a number, a check number. So let's see, so check. What are we going to check? We need a number less than -2, so not make this hard, -3. We need an easy number between -2 and 3. That would be 0. That's an easy one to check, right? You could check anything in between here. -1, 0, 1, 2. But why not choose the easiest number? Then we need to check a number bigger than 3. And we're going to check the number 4. It doesn't matter. You can choose 100. Anything bigger than 3 will work. We just want to see which of these regions are less than 0 when plugged in to this green part. So let's actually check this out. And eventually we'll start doing this in our heads. So look, let's plug a -3 into both of these and see if they multiply to some number less than 0. So -3 plus 2 and -3 minus 3. Let's see, -3 plus 2 is what? -1. And -3 minus 3 is what? -6. Alright, what's a negative times a negative? That's a positive. That ends up being +6, doesn't it? So, is +6, let me ask you this, is it less than 0? Is it negative? The answer is no. So this region is a H no. It is not less than 0. So can we check in this region? Yeah, what number are we going to choose? Any number in here, but choose the easiest, 0. Everybody should be able to do 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 minus 3 is -3. What's 2 times -3? Oh, that's -6, because a positive times a negative is a negative. Feel free to use a calculator on these. So is that less than 0? Because that's what we're checking right here, right? Is it less than 0? And the answer is yes, -6 is less than 0. So this region right in here checks out. So all we have is one more spot to check. 4. So let's check 4. So 4 plus 2, 4 minus 3. Let's see, 4 plus 2 is what? 6. And 4 minus 3 is 1, +1. And you feel free to use a calculator when you do this yourself. So 6 times 1 is 6. Is that less than 0? Is that negative? Is that less than 0? The answer is no, that's not. So this region does not check out. Okay? So now look at what we have. Right here is where we are discovering the answer. Now I need you to give me the answer. We need to give this in interval notation. So let's see if we can give the answer. Let's change colors to make it pop. Can you give me the answer in interval notation? Interval notation. Now, looking at our number line, now we don't have shading this time, but you know we are less than 0 in this spot right in here, from -2 to 3. Now, what sort of symbol, when I'm doing interval notation, am I going to put on the -2 and the 3? I'm going to get that from the inequality here. Now, think back to last semester if you took Algebra 1. If not, you need to look this up. If it's a plain less than or plain greater than, I'm going to use parentheses there. Okay, and this right here pretty much tells you what interval notation we're going to have. We're going to have -2 to 3, and I know to use parentheses because it's a plain less than. So there's our interval notation for where this polynomial is less than 0, or where it's negative. Okay? Let's do a few more examples, and that's really all we're going to do in this section. Let's see. What else do I want to do? Let's do one with 3 terms, so like a trinomial. But once again, it'll already be factored, so difficulty really doesn't matter much. Let's see. X plus 2, or this doesn't really affect the difficulty. X plus 2, x minus 1, and x minus 5. Let's do is less than or equal to this time 0. So less than or equal to 0, that would be negative. Still checking negative. Let's do our number line. And we probably can start moving pretty quickly through this. Can you solve for these values in your head? Hopefully you can. If you can. If you can't, that's no big deal. Set equal to 0, you would subtract 2 over. So we're going to be looking at negative 2. Let's see, I would need to set equal to 0 and add 1 over, so positive 1. Set equal to 0 and add 5 over, so positive 5. So we're looking at 3 numbers this time. Negative 2, positive 1, and positive 5. And so how many regions do I need to check? I got 4 regions to check this time. But it's no big deal. So let's see. Let's pick our checks. So what's a number less than negative 2? How about negative 3? Sound good? What's a number in between negative 2 and 1? If you're going from negative to positive, 0 is always the easiest number. 1 to 5. You want to do 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. Any of those will give you the same negatives and positives. And then greater than 5, let's just check 6. Okay? So now we got to check all of these to see which of these regions are good to go. So let's see. Let's check negative 3. So this, try to write not too big. Negative 3 plus 2. Negative 3 minus 1. Negative 3 minus 5. Let's see. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 1. Negative 3 minus negative 1 is negative 4. Negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. I think I got that right. Let's see. Negative times a negative times a negative will be a negative 32. That is negative. We're looking for less. Is that less than or equal to 0? And that's a yes. Yes, less than or equal to 0. Alright, let's check 0 now. Okay, check the next region. 0 plus 2, 0 minus 1, 0 minus 5, and you literally could just type this in with the parentheses in your calculator. You would get the final answer, but that'll be 2, negative 1, negative 5, and if I multiply that out, that will give me positive 10. So the question is, what we're checking is, are we less than or equal to 0? Is 10 less than 0? And the answer is that's no. So this region's a no. I got 2 more regions to check. So 2 plus 2, 2 minus 1, 2 minus 5. Going a little bit faster here. 4, 1, negative 3. Did I do that right? Checking what? 2 plus 2 plus 2 minus 1 minus 5. Make sure I'm doing the right numbers here. Okay. Let's see. What's that going to give me? 4 times 1 is 4. Times 3 is 12, and it's negative 12. What are we checking? Look up here. This is what you're checking, is what's in the original. Are we less than or equal to 0? Is a negative number less than 0? Yes. So that's a good region. Finally, the last one's to check 6. Let's see. 6 plus 2, 6 minus 1, and 6 minus 5. I'm going fast now. I know something, and I hope you're noticing something too. I'll point out in a second. 6 plus 2 is 8. 6 minus 1 is 5. And 6 minus 5 is 1. Oh, that is 40. You can use a calculator. Is that less than or equal to 0? Is a positive number less than 0? No, that does not check out. So where do I have less than or equal to 0? Right here and right here. Okay, so let's write the intervals. I know I'm going from negative infinity. If you were to trace this from left to right, I see check marks or shading from negative infinity up to negative 2, and then again from 1 to 5. Am I going to be whoops, let's not write anything there yet. 1 to 5. So I need to know what sort of symbols to put on these. What symbol do I always use on the parenthesis? On the infinities, negative or positive, always get a parenthesis because I cannot equal it. When I have an or equal to is when I use a square bracket on a number, but I can never equal infinity. Notice it is an or equal to, so all these other numbers are going to get square brackets. Okay, because I am allowed to equal them. Now notice I have two intervals. What math symbol do I put in between two intervals when I have two intervals as answers? The union sign just means both of these guys are the solution. Okay, both of these guys are the solution. Now I hope you're beginning to catch on something. I'll show you one more example, but if you notice that these always seem to be alternating, yes, no, yes, no. Look back at the last example. No, yes, no. They kind of alternate. These will always do that, though it's just the way signs work. One more example, and then we'll call that good. Call it a day. How about really simple one? X plus 1, X plus 5. Oh, let's go with greater than. We haven't done a greater than one yet. X plus 1, X plus 5. Put our number line. What two numbers am I going to have? I'm going to have negative 1 and negative 5. So do make sure you put these in the right order. Which one's the smaller number? Further to the left is actually negative 5. Be very careful of that. Okay, and now let's check. So what are my checks going to be? Let's check something less than negative 5. How about negative 6? Now something in between negative 5 and negative 1, negative 3. And something bigger than negative 1, 0 should be easy enough to check. So we got to check these three regions and see if they're yeses or nos. So let's see. Negative 6 plus 1, negative 6 plus 5. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. That is 5. What are we checking this time? We're checking to see if it is greater than 0. Greater than 0 means positive. Is 5 greater than 0? Yes. So this is a yes. So remember, it probably is going to be yes, no, yes. But let's check anyways to be sure. So next we're going to check a negative 3. Negative 3 plus 1. Negative 3 plus 5. Negative 3 plus 1 is what? Negative 2. Negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2. Negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 2 is 4. Is that greater than 0? Is a negative number bigger than 0? No. So that one does not check out. Now last spot, let's check 0. This should be a yes, right? 0 plus 1. 0 plus 5. That will be positive 1 times positive 5, which of course 1 times 5 is 5. Is that, what are we checking again? Greater than 0? Yes, a positive number is always greater than 0. So I get these two regions in here. So let's see, this one's negative infinity up to negative 5. And this one's negative 1 up to positive infinity. Now what symbol do I always use on the infinities? Parentheses. On the numbers, I need to look at what the sign was. It's a plain less than or a plain greater than. That's just going to be parentheses. And we will need a union symbol because there are two intervals. So notice this one also alternated yes, no, yes. Alright, you'll have two of these on the test. One with 2 terms, one with 3. It's pretty simple. There should be easy gimmies. Email me any questions you may have, guys. I'll send an email later tomorrow or later on with all the information you need for the test. Alright, y'all have a wonderful day.